You guys feeling creative this morning? You got to feel creative in this spot. This is great. I was excited when they said we were at the Melrose Center a couple weeks ago. Somebody asked me if I get a free hour in Orlando, what do I do with my time? And one of my favorite things to do is come and get lost in this library. And so now I got another space to get lost in. So congratulations, Orange County Library, on this Melrose Center. It's beautiful, and we're glad to be here. My name is Ben Hoyer. If we haven't met, nice to meet you. And thanks for coming this morning. About 4.5 years ago, with some friends, we started Downtown Credo, which is the mission of Downtown Credo is to improve quality of lives by cultivating networks of meaning, impact, and community. Let's see if I can, there's our logo, Downtown Credo. You see it there. I've started to get asked. Initially, I think when we were first starting, people didn't pay quite enough attention to ask this question, but I've started to get asked this question a lot, which is, hey, why does it say Downtown Credo? About a year after we started the nonprofit, we opened this donations-only coffee shop, and it so happens that the building we liked was in College Park. And so people are like, why doesn't it say College Park Credo? Why does it say Downtown Credo? And the answer to that is maybe not the one people like a lot, but for me, when we started looking at how we would want to serve a city, we felt like there was this demographic of people in Orlando, but also across the country, that are moving back into urban areas. And that where we wanted to build this network of meaning, impact, and community, the credo we were writing would resonate with that demographic across the country. And so we wanted to serve that demographic, the downtown demographic. So if you will, Downtown Credo is more of a philosophical downtown than a literal downtown. How about that? So Downtown Credo. Just to give you just a quick picture of a snapshot of who Downtown Credo is, this is a graphic we made for our awards dinner that we do once a year. It didn't come out real great, but it gives you the overall picture of who Credo is. It's really kind of in three parts, trying to introduce people in the city to a life of meaning, impact, and community through three divisions: coffee, rally, and conduit. And so like the coffee that you had this morning comes from some friends of ours in Guatemala. We go down once a year. We spend time with those growers. We pay them an average of 50% better than fair trade. And then every time we serve it, we have people name their price, so that rather than just be a consumer and buy something, you get to be a part of something, and say you get to value the coffee yourself. And so you can start to ask yourself the question, how am I living a life of global impact? So through coffee, we try and introduce people to a life of impact. And then you all know coffee builds community. It's best when you drink it with people and have a conversation. So that's coffee. Rally partners right now with 4 charities in town, and goes to them and says, what are you not doing that you'd like to be doing? And then helps resource them with kind of networks and opportunities, strategic thinking, resources to execute projects that maybe they couldn't on their own. And we're about to launch a new program. I put some little half-page flyers by the coffee over there that we're calling Rally Makers. It's a social enterprise accelerator that we're really excited about. It connects people in the city directly to impact by helping them mentor and fund new social enterprise startups. It's a really neat thing. We'll start opening the application process in August. I'm really excited about it. Ask me more about it afterwards if you want to know more. And then conduit is this recognition that a life of meaning, impact, and community won't happen by accident. It'll take creativity. You all know about creativity. If you just do nothing, you'll follow the rut of the people in front of you, and you won't end up with a life of meaning, impact, and community. So Downtown Credo wants to be the force that challenges you to start to think about what you're doing. Learn something new or learn more about what you're already doing. We try and feature people who are doing the things they love and living with meaning. So we'll feature artists, or once a month we host a songwriter stage that features local songwriters performing works to a quiet room. People that we make them listen to the songs that people wrote. And then we do free skill-based workshops, Skillshare workshops on a bi-monthly basis. Everything from how to brew coffee to how to sew. This weekend we have a cocktails workshop that we have a mixologist friend coming to teach us how to make cocktails, because why not make cocktails with life, right? So that's Downtown Credo, meaning, impact, and community through coffee, rally, and conduit. That's a brief introduction. I hope thanks for enduring it with me. This is a blank white screen because what we want to start to think about this morning, and what was fun when they asked me if I would share some ideas with you all this morning, that it was around the idea of minimalism, which for me is really fun. That's like a small place of interest for me, where I try and focus a lot of stuff around minimalism. But when I started talking to people, I realized it's not an idea that we play with a lot. We don't play with the idea of minimalism maybe as much as we could as a culture overall. So what I thought we would do is start with some free word association, which is why hopefully you got an index card and a pencil, which is fun. Yeah. So, and what happens a lot of times when you do this with folks is the exercise of writing it down is really great, and people will think they don't need to do it. But if they go through the process, they'll like it better. So what we're going to have you do is look to a person sitting next to you, and you're going to record their ideas. And we're going to start with a simple free word association. And right now, one of you gets to go. Because free word association, if you hear their word, it ruins your free word association, doesn't it? So I'm going to say a word, and then you need to say to the person sitting next to you, pick one of you, say to them, what's the first word that comes to mind as we reveal this word on the screen. Does that make sense? Do we know what we're doing? Did you find someone to talk to? Okay, we'll do the best we can. We'll do the best we can, but this is to get our minds started thinking this morning. It's early. I'll give you a second to find a person to talk to. Okay, here we go. Here's our first word. Now, don't filter it. You just say the very first word that comes to mind, and then the next person will get an assignment after that. Are we ready? Okay, the first word is greatest. First word that comes to mind, greatest. All right, you should have it. Now, you want to flip persons. The person who just spoke, ask the other person, give us an antonym of greatest. Go. That's an opposite antonym. Okay, ready? All right, now flip back. Here's the free word association again. Free word association for most. First word that comes to mind. Most. Okay, you should have that. Now flip and give an antonym of most. Go. Okay. Antonym is opposite. Okay. Ready for the next word? Free word association, adequate. Go. First word that comes to mind, adequate. Okay. Now pick an antonym of adequate. Okay. Free word association, the first word that comes to mind, least. First word that comes to mind, least. Okay, now flip, next person talk, an antonym of least. Okay. Now, Free word association, minimal. First word that comes to mind. And now give me an antonym of minimal. Which words were easier? The top of the list or the bottom of the list? The bottom was harder, right? To come up. Yeah. Because you don't think of minimal very often. Right? You are not in a minimalist culture. Right? You are not in a minimalist culture. And so I think that's worth starting right there, realizing how little we play with the ideas of minimalism, right? We just don't spend much time thinking about it. As I thought about it, I thought of kind of three general categories where maybe minimalism comes into play. And I thought of, the first thing I thought of was like art and design, which I'm not an artist or a designer, right? But I can imagine blank spaces, right, with minimalism. The next thing I thought about it was in business. I'm not a business person. I have a business kind of by accident. But so I can't really talk about business, but the idea that came up with business was this concept of the minimum viable product, right? Just get it out to market. Business, minimalism. But then the last one that came to mind was lifestyle, right? And this is something that I can at least have probably some of you in the room could have conversations about these better, but at least I can have a conversation about minimalism as it comes into our lifestyle. That's what I spend a lot of time thinking about, and it's why I was excited when they said, talk with us for a little bit about minimalism, because I think about minimalism with respect to our lifestyle. For Downtown Credo, I have this kind of unofficial reading list. It's only 2 books. So that's why part of the reason it's unofficial. It's embarrassing to make a reading list that's only 2 books, but they're great books. And one of them is I'm stealing some ideas from this morning, and I'll just show you the cover, and then we'll go back so you don't look at the picture all the time. But that's it. Has anybody, raise your hand if you've seen that book before. Deep Economy by Bill McKibben. So I'm stealing some ideas from him. Okay, you can look at it later. Bill McKibben talks about the notion of happiness. He has this one idea in the prologue that he sets out. And this really got me thinking before we started Downtown Credo. He said, for a long time, the birds, more and better, were sitting on the same branch. So that if we threw a stone, we could literally hit 2 birds with 1 stone. We could get more things and a better life. And he said, in our culture, some time ago, the bird better got up and flew to a different branch. And so all we've been getting is more things and not a better life. You've maybe heard of the ideas of gross national happiness or the happiness index coming out of Bhutan. Google that if you want some fun exploration one day. Gross national happiness. But people have started to recognize that happiness is different from prosperity always. Or not always, but most of the time. Happiness is different from prosperity. And they did some studies. It's kind of funny if you start looking at the studies on how they tried to figure out scientifically if people tell you that they're happier, are they actually happier, right? Because how do you find out if people are happy? Their level of satisfaction with life. So they put them through different studies. One study, I'm not kidding, that they put them through was they asked people how happy they were in several stages of receiving an enema to figure out how happy they actually were. Right? Like I'm telling you, they have done scientific studies to figure out if you say you're happier, are you actually happier? And after several scientific studies, they've decided if a person says they are happier, they are actually happier. So if we want to find out happiness and do research on how happy people are, we can ask them, hey, how happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? So then they started doing that. It's very interesting. 2004, they asked a random sampling of Forbes' richest Americans how happy they were. And then they went and asked Pennsylvania Amish people how happy they were. The same happiness level. They asked Forbes' richest Americans how happy they were, and they asked Pennsylvania Amish people how happy they were, and they found out they were the same on the scale. I was thinking about that, how that could be, and a story came to mind. When I was in college, I was living on a college budget, as you do when you're in college, right? And this new car came out, the Mazda 3. Who here has a Mazda 3? Yeah, Dana. Dana's got a beautiful red Mazda 3, y'all. Yeah, she loves it. It's a great car. I can remember when the Mazda 3 came out, and I was so impressed with this vehicle. Like, this Mazda 3 matched me so perfectly, right? Like it was kind of sporty, but very sensible, right? It looks good. I wanted a hatchback because I got to move some stuff sometimes, you know, and I have a feeling that I'm more urban than the Gainesville town where I was going to college actually is. So that would make me feel like I lived in a city. Like the Mazda 3, it was affordable, right? Like the Mazda 3 was the car, they had made it for me. And so though I was like working as a maintenance man in an apartment complex and not making very much money, I started to plot, how could I get this Mazda 3, right? And so I was thinking about it a lot. I was researching, building out what the Mazda 3 would look like on the website. Like this Mazda 3 is the answer, right? I am going to get this hatchback Mazda 3 and everything will change for me. I will be the person I want to be. I will be sensible but sporty. I will be urban, right? And then the worst thing that can happen when you're in that phase happened to me, where I was working in my apartment complex and I pulled up on my beat up golf cart, pulled out my toolbox next to a Mazda 3. Oh man, I pulled right over that Mazda 3. Let me look at this thing because I can't wait till I can have a Mazda 3. And I looked inside of it, and I looked inside this Mazda 3 and I realized, oh my gosh, the Mazda 3 is like just a car. Oh. Right. This person gets in their car, they put their junk in it, and they drive somewhere. Right. Oh. The Mazda 3 will not make me anybody different from who I actually am. Oh. Well, I never got a Mazda 3. But when I thought about, in 2004, Forbes' richest Americans being asked, how happy are you? And them giving the same happiness, reading of themselves as Pennsylvania Amish, I realized part of that is because whether you're driving a Rolls Royce or a horse and buggy, you're still driving somewhere, and it doesn't change who you are. They had another study where they asked pavement dwellers in Calcutta. These were the least happy people in the world, right? Understandably. Then they asked a different subset, pavement dwellers in Calcutta, who were able to move into the slums of Calcutta. Pavement dwellers who moved from homelessness to the slums of Calcutta had the same self-happiness rating as a random sampling of college students from 47 international countries. That's interesting, isn't it? So what I'm trying to get us to start thinking about is like, or what I've started to think about, is this idea that maybe happiness isn't tied to what we have. Maybe. They did some research on the United Kingdom, on Great Britain, And from 1973 to 2001, their gross domestic product, their GDP, raised 66%. 66% more wealth being produced by the United Kingdom from 1973 to 1971. Their life satisfaction rate, their happiness index, did not change at all. More stuff, no happier. Well, that's interesting. This is a good one. When he wrote this book in 2004, I believe. Let me just double check so that I give you the right date. 2007. When he wrote the book in 2007, the average new home size in the United States was 1/6 of an acre. The average new home size in the United States was 1/6 of an acre. When I first heard that, I was like, that's pretty big, actually. But then I started to think about a 1 acre lot. I have some friends that have a 1 acre lot. And so in my head, I'm like dividing it into 6 parts. I'm like, okay, it's not that big, right? I don't know how many square feet it is, but it's not that big. Then he said that the average subsistence farmer in China survives on 1/6 of an acre. Oh. Then I started, have you ever looked at the public storage industry? I'm not kidding, look at it, that's fun. I found an infographic online that will kind of blow your mind from their regulatory body. They have enough square feet of storage space in the United States that every man, woman, and child in the U.S. can have 7.2 square feet of storage space. If you put all of the public storage space together, it's 3 times the size of the island of Manhattan. What? Did you hear that? All the public storage space in the United States, you put it all together, 3 times the size of the island of Manhattan. Because we don't have enough room in our 1/6 of an acre homes, we have to rent garages as well to put our stuff. Oh my gosh, we have got a lot of stuff. And do you know the happiness, our rating in happiness continues to go down. There are developing countries whose overall happiness rating is higher than the United States. When we were looking for a home, I grew up in Lake Mary and went to Lake Mary High School and then moved several places for about 10 years. And over the time I was gone from Orlando, I got married and had a child, and now we have 2 kids. And when we were getting ready to have our second kid, we were looking at buying a home. And one of the things we noticed, we like homes with some character in them. And so we started looking at neighborhoods with character, and we were like, man, some of these houses, I do not think that we could survive in a 1,200 square foot house with 2 children. And then we started looking around and we realized, man, in the 1950s when these homes were built, this was the size home that a normal family lived in, not 1/6 of an acre. And so you start thinking about what we can survive in and what we feel like we need. And you start to realize it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise that we can't, well, the words aren't up there anymore, that it's hard for us to free word associate to the word minimal. Because it just doesn't even come into our life, really. This is what really got me started on Downtown Credo, was this realization that somebody, somewhere needed to raise the banner that our quality of life is more tied to who we're becoming than what we have. Our quality of life is more tied to who we're becoming than what we have. And so we just decided 4.5 years ago that if we become people of meaning, impact, and community, then no matter how much stuff we have, we'll like our lives better. Right? Interesting thing happened when we started saying that. We got a lot of knowing nods. Oh yeah, that's right, yeah. Our quality of life is more tied to who we're becoming than what we have. Oh yeah, I like that. I thought people would be surprised because it didn't seem like we were making decisions based on that. And so I started asking, why is it that the natural momentum of our lives carries us towards entertainment, isolation, bigger homes, newer cars, bigger TVs, right? Why is it that the natural momentum of our lives carries us that way? And one of the ideas is that there's a momentum that builds up in an economy. So it's not true that that income is always inversely related to happiness. They've actually tried to figure it out, and they've decided as they map GDPs, per capita income, and happiness, they realize that the more income produces greater happiness up into a threshold of per capita income. Can you guess what the per capita income is? 70, 75,000. Any other guesses? 60,000. 40,000. Happiness is directly related to per capita income up to $10,000 a household. After that, the direct correlation starts to fall apart. That's nuts, right? Up until about your GDP, your per capita income for a country, looking at it as a whole, your per capita income, once it reaches $10,000 per capita, there is no longer a direct correlation between income and life satisfaction. It starts to kind of get wonky. Imagine if we went down and looked at individuals and asked that on an individual basis rather than on a national basis, that number would probably go up a little bit, if you think about it. As I tried to ask myself, is that square with my experience, the notion that that happiness with life is no longer directly proportionate to income after $10,000 per capita? I thought of this story. When we go down to get coffee, I've only been once. We send a team every year, but it's kind of a crazy trip to go to where our friends are that grow coffee. We got into them through friends of a friend's, and they're in the mountains in Guatemala. So to get there, you have to take a plane, usually to Miami first, and then from Miami to Guatemala City. Guatemala City is an interesting place. But then you got to get up into the mountains, and these guys live way up in the mountains. And so you could drive. They've driven. When I went, we didn't have to drive, thank God. It's like a 9-hour van ride on roads that wash out a lot up into the mountains. So when I went, we took a little 6-seater airplane, and you fly from Guatemala City for like 45 minutes up into the mountains, and you land on a dirt runway that's like on a 30-degree incline. Yeah, and it's like a 6-seater airplane. You're sitting there, and the pilot's like landing, and then you see, hey dude, because he's coming in, there's people standing on the runway. He's like, oh yeah, well, they have one at the top and one at the bottom because they want to keep the pigs and the horses out of the way so we don't hit them as we land. Because then I would take out our wheels. Oh, right. You just put it down. So that was how we got there in 2010 when I went. And then we stayed there at this cool little place in a large farm. And then we got on the back of a pickup truck. Do you hear the modes of transportation? Plane to Miami, plane to Guatemala City, plane to the Quiche region up in the mountains of Guatemala. And then from there, the back of a pickup truck. And from the back of the pickup truck, we're riding. By now, half of the people speak Hispanic and half speak Ixil, like native dialects, right? There's no running water in some places, definitely no sewage. You're bringing clean drinking water stuff because they're drinking out of the mountain water a lot of times. You have to bring things to help them get clean drinking water. We go around to 6 different villages and visit some of the guys that we're buying coffee from there. We pay them directly as we can. There's a group of people that live there full time and build their relationships with them. But the story that came to mind is I thought, does this issue of per capita income falling apart from a direct correlation after $10,000 square with my experience was a story of a guy that I met there, and for the life of me, I can't remember his name, but we were in a little town called Las Brisas, and he had kids with him, and he was about my age, and the homes there are kind of rough. A lot of them don't have poured floors; they just have dirt floors, and corrugated tin roofs. You know, you've seen. But he had a 2-story cement block home with tile on the floor, and he was like my age, and he had kids with him, and he was happy. And so through my friend Stefan, who speaks Spanish, and I'm one-lingual American. I don't know what you call a one-lingual person, but that's me. Uno-lingual. So through my friend Stefan, I am able to have a conversation with the guy, and I find out the reason he's got a nice house is because he's made a couple trips to Florida and picked tomatoes across city, shipped all the money home, and built this house. He'd like to come back and get some more, but it was too dangerous at the time to cross the border. Too many people dying trying to cross the border. I realized, okay, up to a certain point, income makes your life better, right? Some time ago, you and I crossed that point. Some time ago, you and I crossed that point, right? Where was it? This is how economies build up a momentum, right, that gets it to where in the large and small decisions, though we know intellectually our quality of life is more tied to who we're becoming than what we have, for the life of us, we just want a Mazda 3. We just want a bigger TV, a bigger house, a nicer car. The problem is, it doesn't make us any happier than the Pennsylvania Amish, who are driving their horse and buggy and in the house that they built with their own hands. Our quality of life must be tied to something else. And so we just decided that it's tied to meaning, impact, and community. And this is where the minimalism stuff comes in, right? Because I think that a dose of minimalism would produce lives that we like better. Do you hear me? I feel like a dose of minimalism would produce lives that we like better. And so how do we get there? And I was thinking about minimalism in categories that I don't understand, like these, art and design and business. And I was thinking about, like, I don't know if this is right or not, but my idea of minimalist design is a lot of empty space, right? And then like something, right? And I was thinking, the first time that you look at something designed with a lot of empty space and then nothing, or something, you think, well, there's a lot of nothing and then something. But then it occurs to me that if you're creating that piece, you don't have a lot of nothing by accident. You're trying to say something with the nothing that's there. And so then I realized the idea of minimalism is only half of the equation. You don't get to minimalism by deciding to not be something. You're making an intentional choice to be something else. And it pushes out the other stuff. And so that's where I say, if you and I, in a maximalist culture, want a dose of minimalism in order that we might like our lives better, the answer is not to just try and get rid of stuff. It's to decide who we'd like to become. See, because you are in the water of a maximalist culture, it will, if you do nothing, it will drive you towards bigger houses, nicer cars, bigger TVs, right? You'll pull into your house, you'll shut the garage door, and you'll sit down on your couch that always seems to grow every couple of years. Your couch gets bigger to compensate for the bigger TV. If you do nothing, that's what will happen. And so you and I, if we want a dose of minimalism in our life that we might like our lives better, we have to decide what we value and who we want to be more than stuff. We have to decide who we value or what we value more than stuff. And if we can make decisions, it happens in large and small decisions. Here's a tip that I have found. The way to introduce something like this, to go against the momentum of your life, is to start with steps so small they seem silly. I decided that one of the things I valued was to be a person of local and global impact. I would like myself better if I could believe I was an impactful person in the world. I started looking around. Coffee was how I did the global impact, but how could I make a local impact? I started looking around at ways to serve. I found organizations that I liked, and I went to them, and one of them said, "We would love it if someone would pick up trash." Okay, I will pick up trash. I have been picking up trash once a month for like 3 years, and I like it now. I did not like it for like a year and a half. I would organize these cleanups, try to get friends to come with me, and when we started, they were on Saturday mornings, and I would wake up on Saturday morning, oh God, please let it rain. Right? Because the momentum of my life does not carry me towards those things, but I have to make an intentional decision not to put anything else on the page, but what I want. And so I have to go against the momentum of my life and believe if I choose what I value, I will like my life better. Turns out I do. It took a little bit of work. But now I like it. And I like who I'm becoming. And it has tied me to other people, community. There are times I organize things intentionally to put myself around people whom I know I will enjoy. It would be easier to stay at my house and sink into my couch and let the TV grow in front of my face. But I have found, I decided I value community. And it does not happen by accident. And so I make intentional decisions to value this and push this other stuff out of the way. So, if you want a dose of minimalism, you need to decide what you value and pick that over the stuff that will kind of encroach in and take over. That's it. Downtown Credo.
So we have a little time for a Q&A.
Okay.
Just a few minutes if anybody wants to ask any questions and get an answer.
What's the other book on your reading list?
Oh, the other book is Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Oh, it's so good. He's a psychologist who survived the Holocaust. And he talks about existing paradigms of psychology for approaches to life fall apart in hard situations. That if life becomes a search for pleasure, it will fall apart. Life needs to be a search for meaning that will sustain you. Man's Search for Meaning. It's good. It's a good book. Anybody else? Yeah.
As you searched for meaning, did you feel closer or further away from believing in an outside creator?
You know, I feel like there is a lifestyle that there's an approach to life that resonates most strongly with people across the board. And that's what I found was super interesting, was there are principles, this notion of meaning, impact, and community resonates with people no matter where they are on an idea of a creator or no creator. And that has been very interesting to find out that people from all different kind of belief structures resonate and recognize that our quality of life is more tied to who we're becoming than what we have. And if we become people of meaning, impact, and community, then no matter how much stuff we have, we'll like our lives better. Yeah?
Do you feel like you've made a positive impact on your community? And if so, how do you know that you have?
Yeah, the fun, I feel like Downtown Credo is beginning to make a positive impact on our community. And the ways that I measure that are the relationships that we've built, so with long-term partners, and the choices I see people around me making to choose a life of meaning, impact, and community in large and small ways, and it resonating and them liking it and coming back and say, I literally had a conversation 2 weeks ago with a guy who said, you are making an avenue for me to be the person that I want to be. That is success for me. Yeah, but it's one-to-one, one at a time, small steps first and move to larger steps. So I hope we are. Yeah. Yeah.
With either Downtown Credo or the trash pickup, as you feedback and everything, does it organically move forward, or do you have specific plans to do things in the future, like changing or upgrading or whatnot?
With Credo.
Credo or the trash pickup?
Yeah, so the trash pickup, the hardest part for me is keeping an eye on the right goal. So with the trash pickup, it's a good example. So we go to these fields and there's always trash there. And it's hard to keep from the goal of saying, you know, we have been to this field before. But the right goal is not, are we eliminating all the trash? The right goal is, are we becoming people who pick up the trash? And so I am becoming that person, and the kids from the Jackson Center are being introduced to the possibility that they could be those people. So that's the success there. What was the other question?
Is it all happening organically, or do you have specific plans to change it?
Yeah, so on a like project basis, it happens organically as we keep our eyes on the right thing. As I look organizationally at Downtown Credo, what I try to keep my eye on is what builds a network. So the job for Credo is to cultivate a network of people. I like to use the word a porous network of people who are taking up a life of meaning, impact, and community. I want it to be a network of relationships that people move in and out of, and they're there at different levels, but they're all being challenged to question, am I living with meaning, impact, and community? So I try and look at strategically, what can we set up that does that? That's how we ended up with the coffee shop, because a coffee shop is a place where people can come in and be exposed to an idea and then step out. And as that happens over and over again, some of them stick around more. And so we're putting together a couple more pieces. This Rally Makers piece is another like that. That's a place for people to enter into an idea and stick if it matches or not. But through the kind of conglomerate of all those little sticks, we build this network of people who are living. And so there's some strategy involved in it. And then inside of that, we hope that it just happens organically, if that makes any sense at all. Yeah?
Do you also have a desire to change behavior on the front end so that we don't have to pick up trash? There is no trash?
Yeah, so the trash cleanup is a good example. The way I got on it is one of our partners. Remember I said that our Rally division partners with 4 local charities, goes to them and says, what are you not doing that you'd like to be doing? And that was one of the charges they gave us. You know, we don't have anybody that lives in this neighborhood that is picking it up. All people from outside the neighborhood. If you could help us develop local ownership of these parks and streets, we would really like that. And so that's kind of keeping my eye on the ball there. And then, because remember, the goal is to become these types of people of meaning, impact, and community by serving Green Up Orlando and Keeping Orlando Beautiful, who sent us there. So that question hasn't really entered into my mind, just for the fact that there's enough other questions, I think, that I'm tackling right now. What else? Any other questions? Yeah.
What are some of the things that you're really proud of, and why are you proud of them?
Well, he said, what are some things that you're really proud of, and why are you proud of them? I'm actually, some of the things that I'm most proud of are the friends of mine who are taking these steps with me. So when I start to see friends of mine who are making choices to prioritize meaning, impact, and community, they've figured out that blank space so that it's not just filled up with stuff. And they say, this is how I want to make my decisions, fill it with this. And when I see friends of mine make those decisions and then stand next to me and say, we'll be people of meaning, impact, and community together, that has been the proudest for me. That's what I'm most excited about. And so what we're trying to do with Credo is create more opportunities for more people to kind of make that choice with us. Yeah?
You talked a little bit about Credo being, not your words, but kind of a facilitation point, people coming together, change of ideas, and stick it fits. What network or avenues did you use to kind of come up with this philosophy?
Yeah.
Well, philosophies are maybe the wrong word, but and the counter is what what facilitates you to fill your white space?
Me personally, like how to, yeah, so.
How did you come to this place of filling your white space?
Yeah, well, it was like reading books like this and like Man's Search for Meaning and trying to really put legs on it and saying, if this is true, how do we live this out together? So that was kind of how I came to the idea. Now, like what I spend time filling my space with so that I'm pursuing being a person of meaning, impact, and community is really these relationships that I've built with these organizations that we serve through Rally. So like these trash cleanups that we do on a regular basis, we just booked in July. We're helping the Boys and Girls Club with their Get Fit Week. And so I'm out there 1 hour a day for the whole week and working out with the kids and helping them think through it. And we do a bike rally that we're going to do. So it's continuing to be a person who's impacting my city through key relationships. And then choosing as life gets busier to front and prioritize those relationships and people so that together we're these people in the city. That's kind of how. I don't know if that answers your question.
Kind of as far as what key relationships, like if you're making key relationships, what key relationships helped you get to this point of being able to make key relationships?
Oh, yeah. Well, I found I just talked a lot to as many people as I could. Is really, so when we had the idea for Downtown Credo, then I just called my friends and said, hey guys, look at this. And I had it all written out, and I had a plan and a mission, vision, purpose, and strategy, and here's who we're gonna be together. And I convinced 8 of them to be on a board for me, and then we established, and then I went to nonprofits. I just emailed them, and then I said, here's my idea. And if you tell a nonprofit or a charity in town that you wanna help them, at first they're very skeptical because they're like, this guy's feeling good for the day. But then if you do what you say you're going to do, there's so few people who follow up and do what they say they're going to do that automatically you're their friend. And so what I did was I just really believed it and then tried to do it with small steps first and then moved to larger and larger steps. So just talk about it. That's what I did. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I guess I'm just wondering how, with all that you have going on these days, how you continue to maintain the white space so that new creativity is sparked and you're spending time, on your priorities, but how do you keep the white space?
Yeah, the dose of minimalism, yeah. How do you keep it as life gets busy? And for me, right now, it really is, there are things I've identified that says no matter what, I want to be this person. And then there's like activities that go along with that. That's like, I am making time for this. Because if I am not this person, then the rest of this doesn't work. And so it's really just knowing strongly what you value and then connecting that to tangible action that's been the most helpful for me.
We can finish off with you. Ask your question.
Me?
Yeah.
How do you include your kids in your value system, or how do you taught them your values?
I love it. She said, how do I include my kids? My son, it's my chance, somebody asked me. Wesley is 6, and my daughter Eleanor is 4. And they know the Jackson Center well. They come along with me on trash cleanups. Wesley feels like he's in charge of the trash cleanups with me. And so he likes telling people what to do and giving them their grabbers. We taught a computer coding class to kids there this spring, and he came with me on a regular basis. So whenever we're able, we bring the kids along with us and help them understand that this is a family value. These are the people we want to be. And so the other day, we were walking down Central, Wesley and I, because we will walk around Lake Eola or something. And we're walking by down the street, and he looks, and there's a piece of trash next to like a tree. He's like, Dad, he said, we got to do a cleanup over here. They got trash over here. I said, yeah, we do, Wes. Good idea. Yeah, thanks for the question. Good?
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.